I guess to get to the point, we are happy to confirm that every one of our 39 employees who were underground Sunday and were unable to leave at their normal time are safe and sound as of early this morning. I attended a safety summit recently, and somebody made a comment that really resonated to me personally, and that was that the most important thing that comes out of the mine is the miner. And I'm happy to confirm that through the massive efforts of a great team, we hit the mark. Although we never want to find ourselves in a situation like we've gone through and we continue to sort through, I can say I've never been more proud of our Vale employees, many of whom are volunteers for our mine rescue organization. I can't begin to share words to describe the professionalism that these employees showed. Beyond that, I also want to say how proud we are of the employees who were underground for a long period of time. The patience and resolve that they demonstrated along with their family was no doubt exhausting for them. And we recognize that and appreciate it. Also, the mining community as a whole, many shares of support from all across the community were sent to us, and it meant a lot to the whole team. And I can say that the entire team was completely focused on a single goal to bring everyone up safely. Very quickly on some acknowledgements, I've already touched on some. Number one, the employees. Thank you again, patience and resolve in this most exhausting experience. Can't begin to imagine what you went through. And we are so happy that we have everyone back on surface. Once again, mine rescue. I'd say this is an example of mine rescue at its finest hour. Want to make a couple call outs. Sean Rideout, Chief Mine Rescue Officer for Ontario, his colleague Ted Hanley for guiding us through the exercise. As part of the 58 members are employees who are volunteers in this organization. Thank you so much. We are so proud of you, and you ought to be proud of yourself. I know you are. Thank you. Also, we had 5 mine rescue officers, 3 of whom were from Sudbury participating and 2 from Timmins. So thank you to you for coming out and joining us and helping us through this. I also want to thank the USW, Nick and the team. From the get-go have been 100% involved, committed, helpful in us working through this very stressful situation. Thank you very much. Ministry of Labor. We've had members of the Ministry of Labor on site for a while. Thank you. I view you as part of the team. You know that. Thank you for your support. We've also relied heavily on Neomo. It's a group that helped us ensure that we were doing everything we could to understand the condition of our employees while they were underground. And once we got them back to surface. Thank you so much for being here with us, and thank you so much for the professional help that you provided. I mentioned the community and the industry. Thank you for all the words of encouragement and your confidence in us. And finally, I'd like to thank the Totten team, led by Stephanie, our manager. We are so proud of everything that you did in the background, at the front, to get us through this. We will never forget the learnings that we've all gone through together. So, if I missed anyone, I apologize. There are many people, you know who you are. Having said that, that's step one. So one of the things that we started off with is that we are going to take a step-by-step approach. Step one being a complete focus on making sure everyone was brought to the surface safely, which we've accomplished. We do need to move into a number of other steps to understand why this happened and make sure that we put measures in place to ensure that it never happens again, which is a process that will take time and cooperation through a joint investigation that we are sorting out as we speak to get started. And with that, that's all I've got for now. So Nick, if you want to.
Okay, thank you, Gord. Thank you everyone for coming out today. We are very happy that all 39 of the workers are up on surface. The mine rescue teams took the time that it takes to set up the safe passage for every single member to get back up to surface. All of the mine rescue volunteers were Vale employees. I'd like to thank them. I'd like to thank Gord. I'd like to thank Steph and Jerry Tebow is the work rep here. Malcolm Mills is our co-chair of health and safety. They've been working together since we found out what occurred. I just want to make it clear, no one was trapped. There was always opportunity for the people to come up through that secondary egress, and the mine rescue took the time that it took to start bringing the people up to surface safely. We will be doing a joint investigation. There are a lot of questions to be answered: who, what, when, where, and why. And we know that the significant incident investigation tool that we use will get all those questions answered. We'll come to some conclusions and recommendations, and those recommendations will lead us to ensuring that a similar incident does not occur ever again. So with that, I'd like to thank each and every one of the workers that was underground for your patience while we prepared to get you to surface safely. I'd like to thank your families and everyone for the support that was given to us throughout the safe passage for everyone to surface. So with that, we'll take some questions.
Could you maybe your microphone it's cutting in and out. Maybe you could speak into the microphone is good enough for us, but the microphone's on the table. The question is, the last miners were out 4:45 this morning. Can you tell us, what took so long to get those miners out, and what was the scene like when you finally did see those 4 miners, or I guess the last 3, I think, because there was the 4th one was yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, I'll take a crack at that question. Look, we had a number of employees underground, as you know, at varying locations in the mine, for one thing. And basically the main driver behind that, the different times, was that we made sure that every single employee had the support they required in order to make it to surface safely. Okay, so
So that was the delay, why it took so long to get those last few guys out.
yeah, so so depending on the circumstances and the time, we're not going to sequence in single file sequentially. It's staged, it's organized, and there are deliberate steps and phases as we work through it. So it does take time, and some people showed up at a later time than others.
What kinds of support did you offer? What was the range?
Yeah, so look, one of the things about the what had to occur is, as Nick mentioned, we used our secondary egress system, which is a system of ladders, quite an extensive system of ladders going all the way to surface. And what our mine rescue team was initially primarily focused on was outfitting these ladders with the appropriate gear to ensure that we had the appropriate level of fall protection for our employees as they made their way up. So the principle that we stood by as we worked through this was to make sure that we took the time and steps necessary to get properly prepared to bring everyone up safely. And then, as I mentioned, it's a staged approach, and depending on individual circumstances, more or less support was required.
I imagine you've done this before. Can you just,
Yeah,
can
can you just put that mic down and just talking to those? We're getting lots of wind and stuff.
Sure.
It'd just be better. for us.
You've been up and down the egress system. Could you describe to us sort of what's that like, what the pathway to the surface is like when you're taking those ladders?
No, maybe I'll pass that to Nick, if that's okay.
From the first set of ladders, they started on 3150. They made their way up to 1850. Then from 1850, they went to 1250. And from 1250 to 850 is a long 400-foot ladder with landings every 100 feet at a 72-degree incline. And then from 850 to 650, there's the vertical ladders once again. And then on 650 level, they got on the auxiliary hoist and were brought to surface by the auxiliary hoist.
How physically exhausting is it to travel up those ladders? I mean, they have a lot of gear with them as well.
So for the average worker, climbing ladders is not part of their daily routine. So this is well outside of their normal routine. And that is the reason why we had the medical team here. The medical team made an initial assessment when they got to surface, and they're continuing to be monitored until the next 3 or 4 days, and then we'll know the extent of the struggles that they had to get up to surface.
I mean, it's a tight fit of that corridor, right? I mean, it's not exactly a wide chute or anything.
Yeah, it's a culvert that everybody fits in it, but it's not a normal workplace that people usually would be in. They do inspections monthly to make sure that everything is usable, but it's not something that workers do.
Were the last two that came, or the last several that came up, were they the ones in poor physical condition or needed more support? Like, what was the situation?
Every employee was supported 100% by the mine rescue, and every employee was brought to surface with the required amount of assistance that they needed to get to surface.
Somebody mentioned there were some ropes maybe that were used to help lift or assist with the climb.
Yeah, so when we refer to ropes, we're referring generally, and I'm not a mine rescue expert, so I'll just lay that out. But there is, we do have a very complex capability in our mine rescue team. And as Nick pointed out, depending on where we were in the mine, due to age and structures, the nature of the escapeway changes. And therefore, with it, the nature of the appropriate precautions change. So when we talk about ropes, it's a fairly complex conversation that basically is saying that we are putting fall protection in place as a control to make sure that we avoid anyone from being hurt due to a fall.
Please talk about the kind of range of emotions involved here. Obviously, there's been many mining accidents in this city, not all ending like this one. Just, you know, you sound a little emotional at the beginning, but just in terms of from the initial report of the incident until when the last person was pulled out, just talk about what it was like for you. If you could answer that as well.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's an important question that that goes to the core of what keeps us up at night in this industry. We are not at the point where we need to be in terms of being able to guarantee that we can avoid every incident. And when you get a call, it's what happens is sometimes the worst possible outcome comes to mind. So there are a number of emotions that come out. But on the other hand, I think it goes to strengthen our resolve as a team, as an industry, a company, Vale, to never ever let up on our most important work. And our most important work is to bring ourselves to a point where we can guarantee we don't change lives or end lives. So yeah, it's a very emotional topic for all of us. And situations like this make it very real.
Gord, can I just ask you quickly, going forward, or
Could you just let him answer that question?
Yeah, I want to answer
Go
that.
ahead.
So something that I'd like to say is when we arrive in a situation such as this, the most important thing is the safety of the people that are underground. And I personally spoke to a lot of people and said, until every person is safely on surface, we will not be saying anything. We have full confidence in the mine rescue. We have full confidence in the Taunton people and all the people supporting the workers getting to surface. And I did not want to say anything until everybody was on surface safely, for respect to the worker and their family. So that's why there has not been any communication with the media. That's the #1 priority, the people. So that's why there was a delay till we had this media conference today.
Did the company, in your eyes, do anything wrong here?
In my eyes, the work that was done was top-notch, world-class work to bring everyone to surface safely.
Can I just ask, going forward, how long Taunton's going to be down, Gord or Nick, and what happens to these 39 workers? How long do they have off? When are they going to be reassigned to another operation? Can you give us any of that?
Yeah, and I think what I'll do is I'll just lean back to step one, which was only achieved early this morning. We have been pretty much exclusively focused on getting our employees up to surface safely. Now, to answer your question, we need to do some work to understand the impact to the operation. I can say that it is significant, and I think you can understand that, given that we were unable to use our regular means of transporting employees in the shaft.
Do you know at this point what happened, how the scoop became dislodged from the elevator, from the lift? And are you able to say, if you spoke with anybody who was down there, I don't know if you were down there at the time, but what the sound was like from that scoop hitting the bottom? It must have been deafening. Yeah,
so just a couple points of clarification. It wasn't a scoop. It was a scoop bucket that was being lowered. It did become dislodged. It did not fall to the bottom of the shaft. We know that. Beyond that, it's still a little gray. We've not been focusing on the shaft. So the overall details and extent of the damage are yet to be assessed. To your question around the noise, I haven't actually had any detailed conversations on that, so I wouldn't be able to answer that, though it's likely that somebody did hear something.
Do we know if it was a maneuver that like broke that part, or was it like a piece of equipment that just broke? Do we have an idea about that?
No, I mean, we were lowering the bucket, and at some point, the incident happened. There was no special maneuver in play. It's relatively routine we refer to it as slinging equipment underground. You know, that's what I can say at the outset, though we all know that the details are going to come out in the investigation. There are just too many questions right now for us to be able to answer that, and that's really the point of investigating.
How deep does that shaft go? And I mean, you said it didn't go all the way, the scoop did not fall all the way to the bottom. Do you have any idea how far it went? But how deep is that shaft as well?
Yeah, so and I'll be corrected potentially by our mines technical folks, but the shaft goes down about a little over 4,000 feet. The incident took place at 650, and the damage that we've seen so far is in the area of around 100 feet or a little better than that.
How big is that scoop bucket? And, I mean, it's probably obvious. Is it used to just scoop dirt, or what's the...
It's a 7-yard scoop for those that are familiar with it. So it's a pretty large piece of equipment.
You say 100 feet, is that 100 feet from the top or 100 feet from the bottom where you saw the damage?
No, what I was referring to is the area in which there was damage. Okay, so from the 650-foot level.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So 600 is 100 feet from the 650 foot.
Yeah,
level.
in that area. So yeah.
Were you having to be here when the last worker came out? Can you describe when the last worker came out? Was there a cheer or anything that happened? Or was it fairly...
Yeah, thanks for the question. Many of us were here, and I have to tell you that it's hard to put into words. Obviously, a very emotional ending to a very stressful exercise with a lot of effort from a lot of people, as well as a lot of emotion from a lot of families and workers. So yeah, it was actually a great feeling to see that happen. A lot of smiles, a few laughs, fist pumping, and congratulations going on. So yeah, I don't know how to explain it without having been here. So maybe Nick can share some thoughts on that.
Thanks, Gord. Gord and I were both here. There were quite a few people here. But once again, the medical team was here, and that's the most important thing. We cannot speak for any of the workers that were down there until the medical assessment is finalized. So to see the people physically be on surface and out of the mine, yes, that is fantastic. But we're still counting on the medical team to make sure that everybody is dealt with in a correct manner.
You have both mentioned the difficult climb and the fact that climbing ladders is not a typical part of a regular workday for these miners. Is this system of ladders, is this kind of a standard system you'd have in place for all of your mines? Keyboard?
Yeah, definitely. So very briefly, our standards and mining regulations do require a secondary means of egress as just a basic requirement. So yeah, all of our mines have this type of infrastructure in play.
Well, as part of the
Sorry, Nick, did you want to?
Just quickly, some mines are internal manways, some mines are conveyances, and some mines are ramp access. So it depends on which mine it is. We do have mines where people can drive pieces of equipment right to surface from underground.
I'm just wondering, in terms of the investigation, will that aspect of it, in terms of how that system worked, be part of the investigation that will be happening?
Yeah, I'm sure that as part of the investigation, that in these investigations we do want to focus them on finding the root cause of what occurred, and what we always do also is look into uncovering secondary findings, because everything we learn is important, And the egress system is definitely going to be a topic of consideration, no doubt.
I'm just wondering how long you expect that investigation overall will be taking?
That's hard to determine at this point. I just couldn't. We'll take the time required to make sure we ask all the questions and get as accurate answers as possible. So we will take the time required. It's that simple.
Gord, you mentioned the mine rescue team. What is it like having a team like that in your own backyard, essentially, with Vale and the Ontario Mine Rescue Team? We've heard about how far the workers had to climb, the mine rescue team had to go up and down with equipment.
You know, that's a great question. And I think the word that came to mind as you were asking that is pride. The other thought that comes to mind is how fortunate we are to have the organization. You know, the key thing behind this is that this team is composed of our workforce. They are all very proud, for good reason, of their participation in this. They take it very seriously. Of course, none of them actually want to be in a position where we have to use these skills. But I can tell you, based on what we saw over the last several hours, we are very, very fortunate to have this level of dedication in the at our disposal, right, in the company, and it's absolutely a source of pride for us as an organization, and certainly the workers, the team, everybody, community.
I know it's hard, you can't say exactly how long the mine's going to be, down, because it's hard to do an assessment about what needs to get fixed very soon. But in the meantime, the 39 miners, I know some of them are contractors as well. I mean, obviously they're not going to be able to do any of the regular mining jobs. Will they still be paid while the mine is down and getting fixed?
Yeah, so we're moving into beyond step one of getting people up. So I'll keep bringing us back to, we're going to focus on the problem at hand. We are absolutely transitioning to answering this question. Our goal, as always, will be to minimize the impact to all of our employees, and we have various means of being able to do that. At this point, we are, I would say, still recovering from step one and gathering our thoughts on how we progress through that. But looking after our employees and being able to communicate to them quickly is very high on our priority list. And we will take the time required to answer that question as best and as fairly as we can.
Nick, can you answer that question? Are you able to weigh in on that?
Just once again, I'd like to comment, 4:45 was not that long ago. And 5 hours to answer a question like that, the time that it takes you need to respect that time. And we're looking forward to working with the company to make the impact as small as possible.
Just for accuracy, I mean, would there be other mining work that can be done at higher levels, or is everything kind of shut down right now?
Yeah, so to be clear, everything is shut down at Totten. Certainly anywhere under the surface is completely off limits until we've actually had an opportunity to understand what has to be done. Though there will be investigationary type work that can proceed, but until we understand what we're dealing with, the work associated with bringing the mine back online cannot proceed until we know we have that under control. So,
Is the incident also under investigation by the Ministry of Labor?
So we've had, as I mentioned, our partners from the MOL have been with us for a number of hours. And they've been on site, very helpful. They've requested some information from us. We've responded, and we've had some conversations as recently as today. And I'm not fully across where we're at with that, but that's a process that we will work through with the MOL, and it's certainly going to be part of step 2, 3, 4, et cetera.
Gord, you set an emotional scene. You surface, would you happen to remember any of the remarks that the employees made as they resurfaced?
You know, it's a good question. Should be an easy one to answer. I would say there were a lot of, there was a lot of care, a lot of concern for the team, for one another. So we heard a lot of questions related, how are you doing? And I can say to a very large degree, the spirits of our employees were quite high, considering the circumstances. But yeah, overall, just an overall feeling of relief and, I guess I'd say happiness, and just happy to get back to surface and get back to a normal state with their families. So.
Thanks, Gord. I'd just like to say that when the people arrived on surface, they were happy to be on surface. And one of the most important parts of the investigation is the follow-up discussions. So the last thing on their mind was to talk about more than where's the doctor and where's the shower and I want to get home. So we'll be following up with everyone, all the mine rescue teams and all the 39 employees.
Yeah, maybe I'll just make that clear. So there's the emotional piece that thanks Nick for clarifying that. But we did have a good structured process to make sure that we were able to have a conversations assessment with our employees to understand where they were individually. And again, I had pointed out our partner Neomo for helping us through that. So, it was a mix of care, concern, happiness, and also some structured conversations to begin the process of understanding the condition of our employees and being able to follow up with their well-being as we move forward.
When something happens like this to somebody, in your experience, do they ever go back underground?
So, yes, I would say that people do go under. I can't say that I have a huge amount of experience with something of this, any experience, to be clear, with a situation of this magnitude, but certainly aware of similar situations, and people most often, I would say, do return to their work. However, it is certainly something that we do not take for granted, and we've done everything we could to set ourselves up to be able to monitor that and support our employees as we move forward.
I know you guys were able to get sandwiches down to the workers and medications and protein bars. I had a conversation, I was a bit surprised. Is there not food stored in the refuges, or is that not standard protocol in a mine?
Yeah, so at Totten Mine, certainly up until now, it isn't a standard to keep food or rations underground. Having said that, that'll be a conversation that comes out in the investigation. So.
Just one last question, okay?
About the care, is there, in the next weeks, is there going to be like a mental health follow-up for those workers and maybe the other workers, just to make sure that there's no trauma and in 6 months it's going to explode in their head?